Welcome to Flipped Classroom. Today's lesson will put the novel in context of the Regency era. Jane Austen's novels were published during England's Regency period, which lasted from 1810 until 1820. In 1810, when England's monarch, King George III, was deemed incompetent to rule the country because of an ongoing struggle with mental illness, his son, George Frederick, who later became King George IV, was established by Parliament as Prince Regent and took over the leadership of the kingdom on behalf of his father. The Prince Regent reigned as a quasi-king until 1820, when King George III died, and the Prince Regent was officially crowned King George IV. During the Regency era was also the rise of the middle class. Between approximately 1750 and 1830, the Industrial Revolution transformed England and Europe from an agricultural society to an industrial capitalist economy. The Industrial Revolution increased wealth specifically for businessmen, investors, merchants, skilled workers. Many of these new money, middle-class families aspired to become members of the upper class. They purchased land, settled in elaborate and luxurious country mansions, and became known as the landed gentry. They had no hereditary titles, but they considered themselves on the same level as traditional landed aristocracy due to their wealth and possessions. By the 19th century, a social class system consisting of three distinct groups had established itself in England. The working class consisted of agricultural workers, factory workers, mine workers, maids, servants, housekeepers, and soldiers. The middle class consisted of merchants and professionals, as well as business owners. This is where the Bennets would fall into. The upper class consisted of the old hereditary aristocracy and the new landed gentry, who had come into money through commercial enterprise and ascended from the middle class. Members of the upper class did not work and frequently employed farmers to work their land. During Austen's time, the upper class controlled England's politics. Pride and Prejudice presents the conflict that arises when members of the middle class, such as the Bennets, mingle socially with members of the upper class, represented by Mr. Darcy and Mr. Bingley. The Bennets are a respectable middle-class family. They own a small amount of land, but they must work to cultivate it. They have few servants and limited financial resources. Mr. Darcy and Mr. Bingley, on the other hand, do not have to work for a living. Mr. Darcy's hesitation when it comes to admitting his admiration and affection for Elizabeth Bennet exemplifies his initial conviction that he could and should never marry a woman from a lower social class. The narrator tells us that, quote, Darcy had never been so bewitched by any woman as he was by her. He really believed that were not for the inferiority of her connections, he should be in some danger. This can be found in Volume 1, Chapter 10. In addition to exploring themes of the rising middle class, the novel also takes a look at women, patriarchy, and property rights. During the 18th and 19th centuries, women in England had few legal rights. For most of their lives, they depended on the men in their lives, first their fathers and brothers, then their husbands, for protection and survival. Women could not own property. They were considered to be the property of men. Hence, depending on their fathers to, quote, give them away into a lucrative marriage union. After father's death, his land and possessions often passed to the male heir, either a son or another relative, leaving his wife and daughters entirely at the mercy of other family members. Strict inheritance regulations, known as entailments of an estate, determined how property would be passed through several generations within a family. In Pride and Prejudice, Mr. Bennet's land and possessions are entailed to his closest male relative. A distant relative, Mr. Bennet's cousin, Mr. Collins, will inherit the family estate after the father's death. Once Mr. Collins inherits the house and land, Mrs. Bennet and her three daughters will be forced to find another home. Presumably, had Mr. Bennet had a son, that son would inherit the house and land. Austen explains that Mrs. Bennet continued to rail bitterly against the cruelty of settling an estate away from a family of 5 daughters in favor of a man who nobody cared about. This can be found in Volume 1, Chapter 13. Female preoccupation with marriage, such as Mrs. Bennet's obsession with finding husbands for all her daughters, was therefore not only a social preoccupation, but a necessity for women who wanted to maintain a comfortable lifestyle for themselves and their daughters. In her description of Mrs. Bennet, Jane Austen provides significant insight into the lives of women in their time by describing Mrs. Bennet this way. She was a woman of mean understanding, little information, and uncertain temper. When she was discontented, she fancied herself nervous. The business of her life was to get her daughters married. Its solace was visiting and news. This description can be found early in the novel in Volume 1, Chapter 2. Clearly, Jane Austen was critical of not only the social barriers between middle and upper class, but the role of women and how they were treated. In Pride and Prejudice, she ultimately allows her heroine, Elizabeth Bennet, to break through the class barriers and unite in marriage with Mr. Darcy. It is Elizabeth's superior strength of character, her independence, her sense of dignity that qualify her to win Mr. Darcy's love and become his wife, despite her family's low connections. These are a few themes you will come across when reading Pride and Prejudice. Thank you for viewing today's Flipped Classroom, which will provide you the social context in which Jane Austen's novel is set. Enjoy reading!